I seriously mean it. Stop whatever you're doing, go watch Seventh Time Loop The Villainess. It is a new anime in this winter 2024 season. It currently has 4 episodes out, airs every Sunday. I've always planned to getting around to this one, but I'm kind of kicking myself for not starting it sooner. We get Villainess shows every single anime season. There's at least one, sometimes a couple, and I'm really not the target audience. There is a handful, a select handful that I've enjoyed, and recently there's been some that I consider to be the best that we've seen. But already, I can tell this is going to be my new favorite. And even if every season I come up here and I tell you this is my new favorite, that's okay. I'm only talking about maybe one a season every other season, give or take, of these types of shows. They just don't click for me. So when I hype them up or say they're really good, for me, I don't say that often with these shows. You have an amazing supporting cast. You have an amazing premise of this girl having actually died. She has a reason to be fearful and skeptical of how things go because she's died and lived 6 lives. It's not just like, oh, she starts a route and then, no, it's like, I don't even think this is a game. I don't even think she played any video game. As far as I can tell after what I've seen, this is just normal reality for her. This setting is just life as she knows it, as a crown princess who got discarded, lives 6 different lives, every time ending up dead, thinking that this crown prince who becomes emperor, this Arnold man, very evil, mischievous guy who's destroying and causing essentially world war for their entire world, turns out to be a lot more complex than we first thought now that we're in the 7th time loop. Is she really a villainess? Every time we've seen her lives and how she ends up dying, doesn't really feel like she's necessarily a villainess. But I mean, the general world kind of paints her as such, so I think that's more of where the name comes from. She's not a villainess in the typical sense of, oh, she's normally evil and now she has to try to adjust of not, no, like, she's a genuine good person who's lived lives from being a merchant, to being a doctor, to doing all these different things. Hell, she was a maid in one of her lives. And now in the 7th time loop, she's being strung along by this Arnold guy who seems so much more complex in the way she's interpreted him in every single life where she's literally been stabbed and killed by him. And it's such a good, captivating show because the Centro 2 are just as interesting as the other. Arnold as a character is legitimately one of the most charming and fascinating characters I've seen in anime for a male character in a couple of anime seasons. Like, him and Itsumi from A Sign of Affection are 2 guys that are gonna make you, like, need a fan, because there's something about how they charm you. And our main girl as well, she's nothing to shy away from either. She is so good, she's so compassionate, but she has such a strong-willed attitude that it's no wonder he's fascinated by her, and will pretty much let her do whatever she wants. It's just he wants to keep her safe. Trust me when I say this show is a banger. This is legitimately, if I'm looking at just new shows, okay? I'm not including carryovers, I'm not including sequels to popular shows. Let's take a look at just brand new anime that are starting up for the first time. A top 5 show this season. Not even joking. I'm watching like 20 shows total. That's how much I would rank it. Like, I'm loving this show. Go watch it. Thank me later. This show is legitimately 10 out of 10 for me right now. Now, I do have a full live reaction to all 4 of these episodes over on my Patreon. So if you would like to see my full uncut thoughts to any of these current episodes, they're over there if you're interested. I will be covering this one every week on Patreon. We might try doing episode 5 on YouTube on Sunday when it does air, just see how if there is a demand for it. If not, then this might be the only video you get. So if you want me to continue making videos on this, show me that support, leave those comments, drop those likes, and if the demand looks like it's there, I will give you at least an episode 5 video when it does release. But this show is awesome. My favorite part, hands down, is how the dynamic between the Central 2 is, and the fact that, like, let's look at her as an example. This isn't one of those situations where it's like, okay, I know to avoid this flag. Every time she dies, she does something different. She lived an entire life with this merchant situation, and when she tried to relive it a second time, because she was a little more late on arrival, she couldn't do it. So then she had to do a completely different life, and it just kept happening. And the idea that she uses all of those experiences, all of those past lives, she has talents as maid. You know, she knows herbs, she knows how to treat poisonous wounds because she was a doctor. She can pick locks. She has all these different skills, but most importantly, she knows all these different people so well. So as an example, in the 3rd and 4th episode, now that we're kind of situated with her being engaged to this prince, who will eventually become the emperor, who starts this big war and kills so many people, including herself and some of those lives, the idea that now she's in a situation where she's trying to get the merchant that she traveled with in her first loop to basically work with her so that when everything does hit the fan, she has a very powerful ally that will be able to help her. The idea that you have a character like Arnold, who I feel like in a lot of these shows are a lot more strict, stern, and maybe emotionless. He doesn't appear to show a lot of emotion, but he smiles so much around her, not in the way that he's grinning ear to ear, but just these little smirks. And honestly, as someone who's been told most of my life around family that I don't show a lot of emotion, like those little bits of emotion are seen a lot more when they do pop up when you're around people who generally show you, you know, something that means something to you, right? So the idea that he's this type of character who's apparently someone who in the future kills his father, becomes the emperor, and starts a big war seems pretty bad. My gut theory is one of two things is happening. Either A, we're gonna have a Jaime Lannister situation from Game of Thrones, and that's why he's a Kingslayer, or his brother Theodore is partially responsible. So let's start with the Kingslayer situation. In Game of Thrones, you know, there's this big thing about Jaime Lannister being a Kingslayer, but, you know, of course, his reason for killing the Mad King is actually pretty damn noble. It's just he got painted as a horrible person because who kills their own king? I feel like given what we saw, especially in the 4th episode, we see that he's very for the people. And without her being there, that would have been one of many situations that probably paints him poorly in nobility's light, because he's someone who's saying the army should protect the common folk. Private land should be held together by private armies by these rich bastards. Of course, you need those rich bastards to pay the army that protects the common people, so you can start seeing how shit could hit the fan. And with her encouragement, he goes from that to saying, okay, how about this? They protect the common people will feel safe, and they'll have no problem paying more taxes because they're actually getting a service that works for them. Everyone's happy. You can already see just how good of a person he is, but of course his way of thinking, very progressive for a kingdom like this, but eventually would probably rile a lot of feathers. And I'm not sure the dynamic between him and his father, if he actually did kill his father, if it's a misunderstanding or what it is, but if his father isn't the type of person to like that type of policy, and at some point something of his actions is going to hurt the common person, I mean, yeah, I could see him stabbing him in the back for the greater good because you don't want the innocents to burn. However, his brother Theodore is a wild card, so he acts all cute and innocent, like, I don't know, like, he kind of looks like a 12-year-old trapped in like a 15-year-old's body. I don't know, like, his head doesn't match his height. Like, he had a weird growth spurt. He talks very like cute and innocent, but he has a much more intense voice. He lures our girl into this like church area at the end of episode 4. I don't know if he could have been responsible. There's a lot of uncertainty, but either way, there's a lot of dynamics there. And I'm not sure if it was in episode 3 or 4, but at one point when she sneaks out to meet the merchant, she comes back in. There's all these little moments, but I think this was my favorite out of any of them. It's when he basically approaches her because she snuck out. Oh, she's waiting to be punished. She doesn't trust this man at all. He puts the hand against the window, and basically it ends with him saying, if you're gonna sneak out, just make sure you do it with me. Like, I can't tell you to not sneak out. You're gonna do your thing, and hell, some of it makes sense. All I ask is that you let me come with you so I can protect you. Because he basically understands parenting better than any parent. The fact that if you tell your kids not to do something, they're gonna do it anyway. And it's the same thing for a rebellious princess to be queen who he knows he can't control her, doesn't want to control her. He's fascinated by her. He finds her the most intoxicating thing because she's so fascinating and is the only person to not only challenge him, but also notice things like the giant scar across his neck that no one ever has. There is such an intrigue with his character that I absolutely love him. And when it comes to her, I mean, she literally has 6 lives to pull from, both with connections and also just her individual skill set. The whole maid situation is a great example of what makes her such a great character. So she wants to pick like 5 or 6 handmaids to work with her now that she's obviously where she is. So she infiltrates them and acts as a maid. She knows how to do it because of her previous life. I don't know if it was the 4th one or wherever it was. And she ultimately picks 6 brand new ones. No, not only because their personalities were the best, but because they have the most potential, most likely to learn and grow with her. The head maid, kind of like the top bitch in charge, pretty much is horrible. Like, just had a bad personality and she pretty much fires her ass. But it doesn't end there. Instead, she says, listen, you know how to read and write. That separates you from most of these people out here. So instead of making you a maid, I'm going to make you teach all these people so that if they don't work here someday, they have potential to have a good life going forward. That's the type of character we're dealing with. She has spice, she has spunk, but she's a genuine, kind person. And that kindness, that rebelliousness is going to be the perfect addition to someone who, whether he makes bad mistakes or not as an emperor, the fact that she's going to bring that balance and most likely avoid a war, and if the war happens, a lot less are probably going to die because of it. This show is amazing. I love the production, I love the wardrobes, the aesthetic, it is fantastic. I legitimately think this is a 10 out of 10 so far. Go watch 7th Time Loop, you won't regret it. I'm 99.9% sure most will agree with that. Let me know what you thought of any of these episodes down below. Do you want me to keep covering it? Let me know down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new around here, of course, ring that bell, and like I mentioned, we have those full live reactions over on Patreon, and while you're over there, I'll give you a video shout out. Alright, so today we have Luke and Tech Knight. I appreciate the support, everyone. Please take care and have a good one.